Hello and welcome. Before we begin, I invite you to pause for just a moment, not to escape your life, but to gently arrive in it. Wherever you are right now, you may be carrying many invisible weights, deadlines, expectations, disappointments, hopes, fears, and the quiet question that often lives beneath them all. Is this all there is? In today's world, we are more connected than ever, yet many people feel deeply alone. We are surrounded by information, yet often confused. We have more choices, yet feel more pressure. And even when things are going well on the surface, something inside us may still feel restless, incomplete, or uneasy. Buddhism does not judge this experience. It simply recognizes it. More than 2,500 years ago, a man named Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, looked at human life with extraordinary honesty. He did not offer philosophy for intellectual debate. He offered something far more practical, a clear way to understand why we suffer, and how we can be free from unnecessary suffering. At the heart of his teaching are what we now call the Four Noble Truths. They are not religious commandments, nor are they meant to be believed blindly. They are more like a compassionate map of the human mind, a way to see how our pain arises, how our habits keep it going, and how a deeper peace can be cultivated through awareness, wisdom, and kindness. Today, we will explore these Four Noble Truths in a simple and modern way, through the lens of everyday life, work stress, relationships, social comparison, fear of failure, and the constant search for happiness. You do not need to be a Buddhist to benefit from this. You only need to be willing to look gently at your own experience. So please allow yourself to listen not as a student being instructed, but as a seeker being guided. Let us begin this journey together. What the Four Noble Truths really are. Before we explore the Four Noble Truths one by one, it is important to understand what they truly represent. Many people hear the word truth and imagine something rigid, something to be believed or accepted without question. But in Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths were never meant to be commandments. They are an invitation to observe reality carefully, especially the reality of your own mind. The Buddha approached human suffering in a way that is remarkably similar to how a skilled doctor approaches illness. First, the doctor observes the symptoms. Then, the doctor looks for the cause. Next, the doctor determines whether healing is possible. And finally, the doctor offers a treatment plan. In this same way, the Four Noble Truths describe the condition of human dissatisfaction, its cause, its possible ending, and the practical path that leads to freedom. These teachings first appeared in what is traditionally called the Buddha's first discourse, preserved in early Buddhist texts. But their power does not come from history or tradition, it comes from their ability to be tested in your own life. You do not have to adopt a new identity or belief system to use them. You only need to look honestly at what you experience. In today's world, we are constantly told what should make us happy: success, relationships, status, productivity, and recognition. Yet many people discover that even when they achieve these things, something still feels missing. The Four Noble Truths begin exactly here. They do not deny pleasure or ambition, but they ask a deeper question: why does the mind continue to feel restless, even when it gets what it wants? So as we move forward, please remember this: the Four Noble Truths are not meant to make life feel heavy. They are meant to make life feel clear. And clarity, in Buddhism, is the first doorway to peace. Noble Truth number 1, dukkha, the reality of unsatisfactoriness. The first noble truth is often translated as, life is suffering, but this phrase can be misleading. The original word the Buddha used is dukkha, and it carries a deeper, more nuanced meaning. Dukkha does not say that life is only pain. It says that life, as it is normally lived, contains a fundamental sense of unsatisfactoriness, a feeling that something is always slightly out of alignment. You may recognize this in your own experience. Even in moments of success or happiness, there is often a quiet tension beneath the surface. We worry about losing what we have. We feel pressure to maintain our achievements. We compare ourselves to others. Or we simply feel restless, as though something more is always needed. This subtle unease is also dukkha. Of course, dukkha includes obvious suffering, loss, illness, heartbreak, and disappointment. But it also includes the discomfort that arises when things change, even when they change for the better. A new job, a new relationship, or a new phase of life can bring joy, yet also uncertainty and fear. In Buddhism, this is called the suffering of change. There is also a third layer, the background stress of living in a world that is always shifting. Our bodies age. Emotions rise and fall. Circumstances never stay still. When we expect stability from something that is inherently unstable, unease naturally arises. The Buddha did not teach this to make us feel discouraged. He taught it so we could stop blaming ourselves. Dukkha is not a personal failure. It is a natural result of being human in a changing world. When we understand this, we stop fighting reality and begin to learn how to live wisely within it. Noble Truth number 2, Samadaya, the cause of suffering. After the Buddha gently acknowledged that unsatisfactoriness exists, he turned to an even more important question: why does it arise? This brings us to the second noble truth, called Samadaya, which means origin, or arising. It points to the inner cause of suffering, not something outside us, but something happening within our own minds. The Buddha identified this cause as craving, or ta, which literally means thirst. It is the constant inner demand that life should be different from how it is. We crave pleasure, security, recognition, and control. We crave to feel loved, to be admired, to be safe, and to avoid anything uncomfortable. None of this makes us bad. It simply makes us human. However, craving quickly turns into clinging, the tight mental grip we place on experiences, people, and identities. We do not just want happiness, we want to hold on to it forever. We do not just want love, we want certainty. We do not just want success, we want it to define who we are. And because everything in life is changing, this clinging inevitably creates tension, fear, and disappointment. In the modern world, this can look like attachment to status, to online approval, to financial security, or to the image we have of ourselves. When any of these are threatened, anxiety arises. Not because something terrible has happened, but because the mind is gripping too tightly. The Buddha's insight was simple and profound. It is not the world that traps us, it is our habit of grasping at it. When we demand that life must always go our way, we suffer. When we learn to soften that demand, space begins to open. Understanding this is not about blaming yourself. It is about seeing clearly, so that change becomes possible. Noble truth, Nirodha, the end of suffering is possible. The third noble truth is one of the most hopeful teachings in all of Buddhism. It is called Nirodha, which means cessation, or ending. After recognizing suffering and understanding its cause, the Buddha made a radical and compassionate claim: it is possible to be free from that suffering. This does not mean that pain will never arise again. As long as we have a body and a life, we will experience loss, change, and difficulty. But what can end is the inner struggle, the constant grasping, resistance, and fear that turns ordinary challenges into deep suffering. When craving and clinging weaken, something remarkable happens. The mind becomes more spacious. We still feel emotions, but they do not dominate us. We still face problems, but we are not crushed by them. There is a sense of inner steadiness that does not depend on everything going perfectly. In Buddhist language, this freedom is called nirvana, or nibbana. It is often described not as a place, but as the cooling of a fire, the fire of endless wanting, the fire of anger, and the fire of confusion. When these fires die down, peace naturally appears. You may have already tasted small moments of this in your own life. Perhaps there was a time when you let go of a worry, forgave someone, or stopped fighting what you could not control. In that moment, even if briefly, the mind felt lighter. That lightness is pointing in the direction of Nirodha. The Buddha did not present freedom as a fantasy. He presented it as something to be discovered through practice and understanding. You do not have to become someone else. You only have to learn how to stop gripping so tightly. And this brings us gently to the final noble truth, the path that makes this freedom real. The fourth noble truth is called Magga, which means the path. After showing that suffering exists, explaining why it arises, and affirming that it can end, the Buddha offered something deeply practical, a way to live that gently leads the mind out of confusion and into clarity. This way is known as the Noble Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is not a set of rigid rules. It is a balanced training of the whole human being, how we see, how we speak, how we act, and how we relate to our own minds. It is traditionally grouped into three areas: wisdom, ethical living, and mental discipline. First comes wisdom. Right view and right intention help us see how suffering is created and how kindness and understanding can replace it. We begin to notice how our thoughts and reactions shape our experience. Next comes ethical living. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood guide us to live in ways that reduce harm to ourselves and to others. When our words and actions become more honest and compassionate, the mind naturally becomes calmer and clearer. Finally comes mental training. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration teach us how to work with the mind itself. Through awareness and meditation, we learn to notice thoughts without being controlled by them. We learn to stay present, even when emotions are strong. In modern life, this path can be practiced in simple ways: pausing before reacting, speaking with care, being mindful of how we consume information, and returning to the breath when the mind feels overwhelmed. The Buddha did not promise instant transformation. He offered a path of steady, gentle training. Step by step, this path leads from restlessness to peace, from confusion to understanding, and from suffering to freedom. Now that we have explored all four noble truths, the most important question becomes, how do we actually live them? The Buddha never intended these teachings to remain in books or philosophy. They are meant to be used in the middle of real life, during work stress, relationship conflicts, self-doubt, and emotional overwhelm. The Four Noble Truths work like a quiet inner checklist. First, we recognize dukkha. We pause and honestly admit, something here feels uncomfortable. This might be anxiety before a meeting, sadness after an argument, or frustration when things do not go as planned. Instead of pushing the feeling away, we simply acknowledge it with kindness. Next, we look for samadaya, the cause. We ask, what am I clinging to right now? Perhaps it is the need to be appreciated, the desire to be right, or the fear of losing control. This step is not about blaming ourselves. It is about understanding what the mind is doing. Then we remember nirodha, the possibility of release. We gently remind ourselves that we do not have to obey every craving or fearful thought. We can soften our grip. Even a small letting go can bring relief. Finally, we apply Magga, the path. We choose a wise response, maybe a calm breath, a kind word, a moment of mindfulness, or a decision not to react impulsively. In modern life, this might look like taking a few mindful breaths before sending a difficult message, noticing jealousy without acting on it, or stepping away from comparison on social media. Each time we move through these four steps, we train the mind toward clarity instead of habit. Over time, this changes how we experience the world. The Four Noble Truths are not something you master once. They are something you return to again and again, as a compassionate guide through the complexity of being human. As we come to the end of this journey through the Four Noble Truths, I invite you to pause once more and notice something very simple. You are still here, breathing, aware, and alive in this moment. That awareness itself is the quiet ground from which all understanding grows. The Buddha did not offer the Four Noble Truths as a theory about life. He offered them as a compassionate response to the pain that every human being experiences. You do not need to be perfect, peaceful, or spiritually advanced to begin this path. You only need to be willing to notice what is happening inside you with honesty and care. If these teachings touch something in you, please remember that real change does not come from knowing more, it comes from practicing gently, again and again. Even one small moment of mindfulness, one kind word, or one pause before reacting can slowly reshape the mind. For the next few days, you might try a simple experiment. When something feels uncomfortable, silently ask yourself, what is the suffering here? What am I holding on to? What happens if I soften, even a little? There is no need to force anything. Just observe. The Four Noble Truths are not about escaping the world. They are about learning how to live in it with clarity, compassion, and inner freedom. In a time when so many people feel overwhelmed and disconnected, this path offers something deeply human: the ability to be present with life without being crushed by it. Thank you for sharing this time with me. If you wish to continue exploring this path together, you are always welcome here. May your days be guided by awareness, your actions by kindness, and your heart by a growing sense of peace.